everyone. I told you I'd be back. Now I'm want to show off Reaper's Picks Volume 2. You know, this is a part of a series that I'm doing where I show off 3 books. I talk a little bit about them, a couple things that I think about them that I bought in earlier comic book hauls. I might even do some that I've had from years ago that didn't even appear in the hauls. But I figured this would be a good time, a good series to showcase some of those older books that maybe did not get enough airtime, and just talk about why I feel they're important. So here we are, Volume 2. I just did that variant video, so once again, you know, for those out there that, you know, it's just my opinion on variants, and I think a lot of people share the same opinion, even variant collectors. So just because somebody has a different opinion doesn't necessarily mean they're your enemy, or they have a different way of looking at things. It doesn't mean that they're, you know, they can't, you know, come to terms with talking with you or speaking with you about things that they don't agree with. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's not meant to be divisive. Okay? So, with that being said, we're going to start off with this one. I know you're getting a little bit of glare, but we all know what this one is. This is Werewolf by Night 32, the first appearance of Moon Knight. I purchased this, as you know, those that watch my earlier videos, I always purchase these books way before the actual video that they're showed in. So I've had this for quite a while, and I managed to get, this is a 5.5 copy. It's got some creases on the spine, some color breaking creases. But other than that, it's a really nice looking book, both inside and out, you know, on the back cover and everything. Really sharp colors and so forth. I'm very happy to have this book in my collection. Now, I know that Werewolf by Night 32, First Moon Knight, is just a book that's really expensive in all grades. I heard rumors that there were limited amounts of these. I mean, not real limited amounts. I'm not talking like really a whole lot less. But I just heard that this book had a lot less printed than other Werewolf by Nights. I don't know how true that is. I couldn't care less. I wanted it because it was the first appearance of Moon Knight. Now, I know everybody, well, maybe not everybody, that's a general term. I shouldn't be saying that. But I think a lot of people are waiting for Moon Knight to show up on Netflix or some capacity in a Marvel Cinematic Universe, maybe. And I know once that happens, this book is going to explode. But this book has been expensive for a while. Like I said, even in low grades. Like I said, I have a 5.5, maybe a 5 on a bad day. But I honestly think it's probably like a 5.5. But then again, though, I'm not a professional grader. But it looks nice. But like I was saying, you know, I know this book, people are probably waiting for Moon Knight to show up. Maybe with Daredevil or Luke Cage or whatever. And I know it's probably going to explode. So, for those of you out there that are looking to get a Werewolf by Night 32, if you can get it cheap. Now, what is cheap? Cheap is different for a lot of people. You're going to have to decide that on for yourselves, what cheap is. I'm not going to tell you what cheap or what expensive is. My tastes are different. My finances are different than yours. You got to decide what's cheap for your wallet. But it's definitely a book, I think, that has a lot of potential for those out there that are looking to maybe flip books or looking for books that are potential spec books. You know, no big surprise that it might be a spec book, right? But yeah, I like Werewolf by Night 32. I got it because it's the first appearance of Moon Knight. I got it several years ago, and I'm happy to have it in my collection. Sure, would I like to get it in a higher grade? Like I said, I don't really do updates or upgrades too much. But if the price was right, I would. But when it comes to upgrading books, I rather get the books that I'm looking for first before I decide to spend any more money on a book I already have. Does that make any sense? Like, for instance, I said this was a 5.5. Well, there's other books that I'm looking for that are going to cost a decent amount of money. Let's say if I wanted to get this a 7.5 or an 8.0, that's a lot of money. It's expensive. This book is expensive in higher grades. Well, I rather use that money toward a book or a couple books in really nice, in decent shape that I don't have before I waste it, in my view, waste on a book that I already have, just upgrading it. I'd rather let the dust settle, get what I want to get, and then decide what I want to upgrade at a later time. That's another collecting tip I have for those. Here's another one. Daredevil 131, the first appearance of Bullseye. This book I've wanted for years, and I did not get it back when I first started collecting. And I always thought about it. I've always loved the cover. I always thought it was a pretty cool cover of Bullseye about to hit Daredevil. And Daredevil crouching over the guy that Bullseye just killed. I've always thought that was such a cool cover, and I was very attracted to it. So not only was it because it's the first appearance of Bullseye, because of the cover. This book actually, right here, Daredevil 131, is the book that got me back into comic book collecting. When I went into the comic book store and I saw this, and I was like, oh man, I'd love to get that one day. And I didn't get it when I saw it, but later I got it. But that sort of started piquing my interest in getting back into comics, and then I started picking up other books and eventually got this one and so forth. This is probably a 7.0. Not a particularly super high grade copy. I don't necessarily need a super high grade copy of Bullseye. Even if he does show up on the Daredevil TV show, I'm sure that the book will spike, and then when that show is over, or his appearances on that show is over, the book will go down. And that's when I'll get my upgrade. That's when I'll get a higher grade upgrade, when nobody else wants the book. And all the people that spent top dollar on it when it was hot, you might have wanted to wait a little. So that's another little tip. Whenever a new movie comes out, a new villain or whatever, okay, we all know villain books, they tend to go down, but don't be too quick to buy them. Wait until the hype goes down, because the books probably will go down in value, especially if it's Silver Age or Bronze Age villains. I mean, Golden Age villains, when it comes to Superman and Batman, they tend to be different. They tend to hold their value, and if they go down in value, it's really not by much. But I've noticed when it comes to Silver Age, even some of the Silver Age heroes, not the big boy books heroes like Spider-Man and Hulk, but like Hawkeye and Black Widow, they'll come down, and you'll be able to probably find deals, or at least decent deals on them at a later time. Just don't be all swept up in, oh, I have to have this now, I gotta get it now. If it's like a character like Bullseye or a character like Hawkeye or Falcon or whatever, they'll come down again. Just have to wait it out a bit. And the last book for Reaper Picks 2, one of my favorite and my first Golden Age purchase. And what a book to have as my first Golden Age book. I was a big EC fan. As those of you that watch my channel, you know I'm a big EC fan. And that's really, even though my first comic book wasn't an EC book, but I started reading comics regularly with the EC reprints from Gladstone and eventually Russ Cochran's hardcovers that I've showed in another video. So I always wanted to have a real, genuine EC horror book. And this was the first one that I got, picked up back in October 2014 at the New York Comic Con. This was the last purchase. No. Was this the last purchase I made that day? I'm not certain. One of the last, but I was super happy to get it. It's probably a 4.0, so it's in pretty decent shape. Low grade, but decent shape. I loved the stories in this. They were both on. There were a couple. Obviously, there were about 4 or 5 stories, I think, in this. 2 of them, I believe, just 2, were on the HBO series. The first story in this is Werewolf Concerto, and that was the one where Timothy Dalton played, if you remember, if you remember like I do, like with my memory. I forget what season it was. I think it was the 3rd season. Werewolf Concerto. Timothy Dalton, who was famous for playing James Bond. Actually, he's my favorite James Bond, Timothy Dalton. I've always liked the way he played the character. Too bad he was only in 2 movies. But Timothy Dalton was the werewolf. And he was at this resort, and he was hunting people, and he started to take interest in this woman. I think at the end of the episode, he thought was a werewolf hunter. It turned out she was a vampire, so she technically was a werewolf hunter. So that was a pretty cool episode. And the other, one of my absolute favorite stories in this book, and one that was in the 2nd season of Tales from the Crypt, it was called Fitting Punishment. Now, with my background, I love anything that deals with morticians. I love it. I eat it up. It's always negative, and I think that's not an accurate portrayal of morticians as being always in a negative light. That's obviously very false. But I don't take too much offense to it. But yeah, Fitting Punishment. It's the one where the son, this kid, was a teenager. His parents were killed, and he went to go live with his uncle because his uncle was his only relative or whatever. And his uncle was a mortician. He was a miserly guy. You know, make sure the lights are off at all times. All this stuff. Everything costs money to him, and it was pretty cool, man. What happened in it? The uncle got angry with the kid because he ordered the wrong size casket, and that cost money. So, in a fit of rage, the uncle beat his nephew in the comic with a hammer. I think in the actual TV episode it was a crowbar. He beat him, paralyzed him, and then at the end killed him and used that casket on him. But one night the nephew came back to life from the dead and got his revenge on his miserly, evil mortician uncle. I used to just love reading those stories. Oof. When I was a kid, and just like on a Friday night, like late night around in October. I remember as a kid, in the dark, well, having some light reading these stories, but just love reading these old reprints, and then watching like Night of the Living Dead in a dark room, like around 1 a.m, knowing that I didn't have to get up the next day for school. It really was a great atmosphere. And that's why I was so attracted to those EC stories. So those are the 3 for Reaper Picks Volume 2. Like I said, I think the Werewolf by Night 32 and the Daredevil 131, those are definitely worth picking up for those that think they might be of value pretty soon, because you never know. Moon Knight might show up in a Netflix show, and I think it's only a matter of time before Bullseye does, but just be patient. Don't spend a whole lot of money on them, because they will go down if they do, I think at least. And for those of you that are big horror fans, you cannot go wrong with any Vault of Horrors or Tales from the Crypts or Haunt of Fears. I've always liked Tales from the Crypt and Haunt of Fear the best. Vault of Horror was my least favorite of the 3. You would think that would be the best, but I thought that the stories weren't always as good. But how could you not love this cover? Well, thank you for watching Reaper Picks Volume 2. Check out my other videos. I appreciate all your support. Thank you so much. I'll come out with another Reaper Picks video maybe another week. And if anybody has any ideas on a topic that you'd like me to talk about, like for instance, I talked about variants briefly, let me know. I'll gladly talk about anything that you would like me to talk about. Until next time, take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all your support and leaving comments and thumbs up. Take care.